All right, everybody. Welcome to the Contextual Christian Church Bible study, where today we're going to read Isaiah chapter 28, verse 23 to chapter 29, verse 8. I'm going to pray it in. Everybody, bow your heads. Father, thank you for getting us on this Bible study today as we're still continuing through Isaiah to get some more context, to figure out what's going on with the situation, whether it be anything prophetic or whether it be a lesson. I pray that the what we're going to get is easier to understand for today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So I'm unmuted. Okay, cool. So last time we almost finished up chapter 28, but not quite entirely. And we started off with it being proposed as a question: who can be taught knowledge? Who can be taught doctrine? Because we had just finished up with the study prior to that about the false teachers and false preachers and false priests and how they're stuck living in their false ideology. So who can actually learn it? Bringing up about how you need to do it little by little by little, precept upon precept, learning to build a foundation over time. And they're pretty much at the point of stuck in their ways. And then it brought up the a comparison, or not comparison, a direct line, I should say, to something that Jesus brought up and of what Jesus was going to do. Literally prophesying the same thing he said, almost word for word in 11 and 12, where it brought up that this is the rest wherewith ye may cause the weary to rest. Well, as we know from the New Testament, Jesus is the rest. He is the living water. He is that refreshing. He is that eternal life. And it even brought up in 13 about the word of the Lord was unto them a precept on precept until it kept on building up. It toppled them over. Ironically, that's what happened in the New Testament, metaphorically speaking. So as we went through 28, finishing up, we literally talked about how these false teachers and false preachers, they had a covenant with death, it said. A covenant with death and a covenant with hell. And how you may think you're good, but when God starts raining down that judgment, when that time comes out, you're going to realize that you had no covenant at all. It's going to be disannulled, voided, contract non-negotiable, cancel. And so the last part that we got into up to verse 22 was pointing out about the level of anger, the level of wrath that God was going to be pouring out in that time. That it said he shall be wroth. Now, as we know from the definition of wroth, it means you're so angry, you're so pissed off that we could see it on your face. We don't even have to ask if you're angry. And so it pointed out as the last, very last part in verse 22 to saying to them, don't be mockers. Don't be people that are poking fun about this or about that situation. Because, and as it pointed out, lest your bands be made strong. So, in other words, it also pointed out a possibility or opportunity for forgiveness and salvation if they're willing to adhere the truth and not be mocking in the midst of their sin. So now, as today we're going to go and continue on, as I'll switch it to our first section so our first reader can read. And go ahead, Charles, when you're ready.
All right. I'll be reading Isaiah chapter 28, verses 23 to 27. Give it a couple seconds. Verse 23. Give ye ear and hear my voice. Hearken and hear my speech. Doth the plowman plow all day to sow? Does he open and break the clods of his ground? When he hath made plain the face thereof, does he not cast abroad the fitches and scatter the cumin? and cast in the principal wheat and the appointed barley and the rye in their place? For his God doth doth instruct him to discretion, and doth teach him. For the fitches are not threshed with a threshing instrument, neither is a cartwheel turned about upon the cumin, but the fitches are beaten out with a staff, and the cumin with a rod. I'm gonna need some help with these farming terms.
Mm-hmm.
Starting off, um, I'm going back to the. This is a well. We're starting off different section, but it. I have to bring up the technicality thing again.
Yep.
This sounds like a same tree, different branch.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
we start off in 23 with him just saying, "You need to give ear, listen to me, hear me out, listen to what I have to say." And we 24. Let me reread it. Doth the plowman plow all day to sow? Doth he open the break? Does he open and break the clods of his ground? The first question's a no, but what's a clod of the ground? Could you help me with that?
Actually, Claude, think like if I remember correctly, I think it's kind of like a blood clot, like where it's stuck together.
Oh, let me go to the. I was on the Zoom app. Let me go to the definition. Let me go to the app. That's funny. I
But
read that all through
I
the
was
app.
I was about to go there.
A primitive root to a braid that is a harrow a field. Break clods. I don't even know what a harrow is.
This would be one of those examples. I remember I was telling you, you start off with it. If you can't find it going through that, it might be a word that you might have to look up. It might be the English word that you don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's like a clot. It's a clot. It's like a lump of earth or clay. Now, this is a
Lump
good time to show you something. It said harrow, right?
in the clod. Let me go back.
This is one of the
Yes.
tools to know to make sure that you're getting the accurate definition. So you got clod, then look up harrow and see what the similarities are.
Harrow on Google or Harrow on the Bible app.
On Google. When you can't find it through there because you don't understand the words that are in the definition, a good way to do it is to take a couple of the words that are in the dictionary that you don't know and look up their definitions
Got it.
to see what the similarities are.
In agriculture, a harrow is a crucial farm implement used for secondary tillage, breaking up soil clumps, clods.
You see why I
That's
said it's
funny.
kind of like a clot?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. It's like a clot, but it's a dirt clot from dirt and clay.
Hmm. Let me go back to 24. Doth the plowman plow all day to sow? Well, the answer is no to that. Doth he open and break the clods of his ground? Well, he has tools for that, so no. You don't need to do all that all day. But there's a point in why it said that, though. Let me go to my questions page. Sorry for the silence. I'm thinking of what type of question this was because there's a
You're
reason
good.
why I put it up there. This, you know what? Let me read the rest of it. Maybe the rest of it helped me get the answer to this.
Well, you
When
kind
he,
of already, before you continue, What did you say to the answer of the first question in 24?
No. Or the answer was no.
So if the answer is no, and you already know the answer, then what's the point of the question?
Um, shouldn't I like bring up like what like that? I have to answer that. What was the point of even asking that? Like what was it trying to get at in this?
Well, no, I'm saying you kind of answered it. The point, like, okay, so if it's that straightforward of a question, right after he says "give ear to hear," pay attention to what I'm about to tell you. Does a plowman plow all day to sow? And you said no. So then what was
Mhm.
the point of the question?
Oh, so you're getting me to, it was getting me to think about the question. And that was the point of the question,
Yeah,
to get me
that
to
was the
think
point of the
about the
question. To get
question.
you think, no, he doesn't. Then think about the doth he open and break the clods of his ground? No, he doesn't open up the ground to break the clots of it. He tills them through. Then go into 25.
Sorry, let me write that down.
Hmm.
Verse 25. When he hath made plain the face thereof, doth he not cast abroad the fitches, and scatter the cumin, and cast in the principal wheat, and the appointed barley and the rye in their place? Oh, we're still talking about a field. When you're talking about when he have made made plain the face, he's talking about where he's about to scatter the cumin, where he's about to scatter the barley, the rye. I need to look up fitches. I don't know what fitches are, but well, you know what? Do I even need to look up fitches? Because the point's there. He's scattering different things that need to be planted. So do I even need to look up fitches?
Only for the sake of listeners.
Got it.
But outside of that, for concept and context, no, you get the point he's making.
The Strong's for fitches from an unused root, apparently meaning to incense, fennel flower, from his pungency, fennel flower. Hmm. I might want to Google this again.
Hmm.
um, Fitches. Black cumin. That's all. Okay, that's funny. Black cumin, an aromatic seed used as a spice, and spelt, a type of hardy grain, often mentioned with wheat, which is funny. We just mentioned barley.
Exactly.
Just writing this down. So the fitch would be used as a spice. So we're throwing out the seeds for the spices. They're throwing out the cumin, which all listeners, you guys know what the spice that is. We're throwing out the cumin and cast in principal wheat and appointed barley and rye in their place.
Now, we remember in verse 24, the point was to say no. It was an obvious question with an obvious answer.
Mm-hmm.
So the point in 24 is to say no to the plowman plowing all day to sow, and no to him opening up the ground to break the clods of his ground. But then we got 25 where it brings up that when he's made a plain face of it, when he's fixed it. So obviously no for the 24 and 25. So instead, in 25, when it is made plain, he just casts it. He casted it plainly. I mean, on the plain ground. So then go ahead and so what would that be pointing out?
Other than well, no, let me well, other than the obvious answer, wouldn't it? I have to add 26 to figure out what it's pointing out. what he's trying to get at with that?
Yes.
So the obvious answer would be yes to 25, but adding 26, for his God doth instruct him to discretion, I can't talk, discretion, and doth teach him. And I want to make sure I
Now,
get this out. Oh, go
now, do you
ahead,
know
go
what
ahead.
discretion means in that
It should. Well,
context?
let me go to it because I was thinking it's the same as the way we use discretion.
No.
Properly a verdict, favorable or unfavorable, pronounced judicially, especially a sentence or formal decree. Human or particularly divine law, individual or collective, including the act, the place, the suit, the crime, and the penalty. I need to understand what discretion means in this. Write this down.
This is something unique for Bible speech. Discretion in the Bible is not used the same way as we use it today. Discretion today means holding secrets.
Hmm.
It's similar, but not the same. Discretion, in the Bible speak, is more often than not saying, do it without talking back, just get it done. That can include secrecy, like don't go out and telling everybody what you're doing. But the main focal point of just instruct him to discretion is just go do it. Don't talk about it. Just get it done.
Um, this is what a parent would do with children with the chores, right? Could I use that as like an example for
Yeah, kind of.
discretion?
Depending on how you use it in a sentence, yeah.
Mm. So do as I say and don't talk back. Don't go talking. Just get it done.
Yes. Yeah, but not just talking back, talking to other people either.
Just go
It's
get it
basically
done.
like go get it done.
Go get it done. For God doth instruct him to discretion and doth teach him. In other words, I don't want to throw it out there. Just let me collect myself. Especially with 27, this whole thing just sounds like with 26, God is telling him to telling and teaching him, teaching whoever, whatever for whatever it may be. And 24, 25, 27, we're giving the example of that, of God being the person to teach and to instruct us to do things.
Not just
I want
that.
to make okay. I thought that
I
was
would say
completely
that's not
wrong.
accurate.
Okay, then it's completely wrong. Then okay,
No, not completely. Not completely. You are right somewhat.
okay.
Think about it this way. What does sowing represent in the Bible?
When you're sowing seeds, you're like you're the things you're doing to how do I get it out? I can't even get that out. You're working towards like better things into God, basically, when you're sowing seeds, like your works.
No. The works would be watering. Sowing seeds is putting forth the first steps. For example, when you're sowing seeds of salvation, it's when you first preach to somebody. When you're sowing seeds in other ways, it's the same thing. So it's really establishing the first steps so something can grow. If you are plowing all day, is anything growing or able to grow?
No,
Are you able?
no, nothing's able to grow if you're just doing that all day.
Exactly. But if you're plowing all day, aren't you clearing out what's there?
Preparing, prepping.
Exactly. Well, not just preparing or prepping. I mean, who's to say that your plowing is actually making it better? Well, if you keep plowing all day, you might plow past the good ground.
Might make it
You can
worse.
destroy your fields.
Hmm.
And then doth he open and break the clods up in the ground? Do you break apart the clots of dirt and clay? Well, both of those are breaking apart the ground instead of letting it be stand firm and just planting in it. Well, Discretion is the same thing. If you're delving deep into somebody's information, or you're just clearing the path, constantly clearing, and you're not actually sowing anything, then there's nothing to grow. So it kind of works in the same way. Do you see what I'm saying?
I need a. Could you give a like a new like today's day example?
Yeah, yeah. Today's day and age of the plowing and of the breaking the clots up. So, hmm, when you're setting up a business, you don't start the business. You can't start the business if all you're doing all day is breaking down everything. There has to be some building.
Mhm.
In the same token, in reference with discretion, if all you're doing is breaking down into somebody and not building, not sowing into the person, then they can't have any growth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a little bit better. That's actually a little bit better. So it's not just the breaking down that we have to that you're trying to explain with discretion. It's also the building as well.
Well, exactly. Because remember, the word for, what is the for used for in the
Because
Bible?
because
Because. So when he hath made plain the face thereof, well, if you've made plain the face, what have you done to the ground?
you've already prepared it. You've already went over it. You got it ready to start throwing some seeds around.
Exactly. You may have plowed a little bit, you may have cleared it out, but as soon as the ground is ready, as soon as you reach that good part, you start planting. You don't keep plowing. In all honesty, this is kind of a good self-reflection for me. And the way we're teaching you guys, this is perfect timing on that again, thank God. Because sometimes I get in the habit of just plowing instead of sowing seeds with you guys when it comes to the Bible study. Does that make it a little bit more understandable?
24 is the breakdown part. 25 is the building part to get to the God. When he instructs him to discretion.
Exactly. And it points out more in 27.
Let me read 27.
Mm-hmm.
For the fitches are not threshed with a threshing instrument, neither is a cartwheel turned about upon the cumin, but the fitches are beaten out with the staff, and the cumin with the rod. Okay, further things that he has to do with the things he's planted.
Exactly. So it's not supposed to be something that is like threshed out. Now, what is threshing again?
Threshed, isn't that like that's like ripping, tearing, like that aggressive? Or am I thinking of a different word for that?
Well, look it up. Look it up online.
Strong's Strong's definitely. Let me go to the Strong's first. A primitive
Of
root
course.
to trample or thresh, break, tear, thresh, tread out, down at grass.
Yeah, so it's not a pulling, it's a stomping out, so to speak. It's a not crumbling, that's the wrong word. It's a
Like a
think
breaking down.
like tenderizing meat. When you're doing the threshing, yeah, you're what is the word I'm thinking of? Uh Long story short, it's beat. It's not dug in. Does
I
that
got
make
the image in my
sense?
head like tenderized meat. I got the image.
Okay, cool. Like you're
Beaten
beating
down.
it exactly. But with the threshing instrument, look up a threshing instrument so you can see what it looks like.
Let me Google it.
Mm-hmm.
Could you Google it for me?
Yeah.
I got this weird design thing that I'm like, is it really this? It
Yeah.
looks like a wood with all these things on it, on the wood.
What do you mean all these things on it?
Here, let me send you a screenshot because this is
The way I would describe it is like a cheese grater.
literally, it looks like a wood cheese grater.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. Yes, it looks like a wood tree. Thank you. I could not figure out what did it look like. Like a literal wood cheese grater. Okay. All
Yeah, that's it.
right.
So imagine when you got that drag, because look at it, it has the tool to drag it. So when you're threshing, think about what that would do to it. Just like a cheese grater, it's gonna rip some apart. Now with certain type of stalks and certain type of fruits and fruits that are not fruits, certain type of plants that are planted for that, it'll pull them out of the ground. So it's good for that. But with cumin and with fitches, they're not supposed to be pulled out of the ground. They're supposed to be taken and beaten out.
Beating out with the staff and the cumin with the rod. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's how you get that out. So when you look at it, it brings up about the sowing of the ground. Does he keep on breaking the clods? When he made the face plain, doesn't he just cast the fitches, the cumin, the black cumin? Didn't he just cast it over there so that they're able to rise in their place? Do you see what he's saying?
That's the part I'm trying to get out. I can't get it out. I'm trying to get it out, but I can't get it out fast enough.
All right. What were we talking about last time in 20 through 22? What was 22?
I gotta go back.
Mm-hmm.
Now therefore be ye not mockers, lest your bands be made strong. For I have heard from the Lord of hosts a consumption, even determined upon the whole earth. Didn't you get that into that in the summary? Don't be the mockers, lest your those chains get strong.
Exactly.
With
So he's talking about not breaking up the soil because the cumin's being planted there. Well, if you have there's a couple possibilities of what he could mean by this. And we won't know for sure till we get to the next verses. We don't have enough information. However, one of the possibilities is that he's pointing out that you can't keep breaking down the same ground. If the ground is not good for a certain plant, then the ground is not good for the plant. And you have to do a different ground for the plant. Perfect example of that is there are certain plants in Nevada that will not grow, and there are certain ones that do. And that, if it is the case, could be related to instead of the how he could not teach the false prophets and false teachers and false preachers and false priests because they're part of that ground that keeps on breaking it down and not actually letting the seed sow to God's way. That's one possibility. Another possibility is that he's talking about from the perspective of when you're sitting here trying to break up the ground and all that, that's like trying to break down past all the lies that he brought up. Remember how he brought up in the last chapter or the last portion about how they think that they're going to be safe because they hide in their lies. Well, there's no point in breaking down the ground, bringing up the clots, which would be them and their lies in representation. Because when you're planting cumin, which is a different crop, you don't need to thresh it. You just need to beat it. Or the third is he could be referencing them as them being the threshing type of plant and how he's trying to plant a different plant. So there's a few ways you can look at it, and it can either be correlating to the past verses or it could be correlating to future tense prophetic speech about those that are going to be saved and the different type of sowing and different plants that he's talking about. You see what I'm saying, Charles?
I hear you. Could you give me that last possibility you were talking about that with the last section?
Yeah. When it brings up the finches or fitches and how they're not threshed with threshing instrument, well, that pulls them out. But if you don't need to drag them down and pull them out, and all you do is you're supposed to beat them, that could be representing about how the fake Pharisees, the false teachers, false preachers, false priests, how they're a different plant entirely. So they're set up to be pulled out, to be uprooted, whereas the ones that he's establishing just need to be beaten out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm still writing too.
They're good. Well, we won't know for sure until we get to some more verses.
Got it.
Now, in the meantime, do you have any comments or questions, Charles, as we go to the second section?
No.
All right. Now on to the second section. And I'll be reading chapter 28, verse 28 to chapter 29, verse 3. I'll give everybody a second. All right. Verse 28. Bread corn is bruised, because he will not ever be threshing it, nor break it with the wheel of his cart, nor bruise it with the horsemen. This also cometh forth from the Lord of hosts, which is wonderful in counsel and excellent in working. Woe, and now chapter 29. Woe to Ariel, the city where David dwelt. Add ye year to year, let them kill sacrifices. Yet I will distress Ariel, and there shall be heaviness and sorrow. And it shall be unto me as Ariel, and I will camp against thee round about, and will lay siege against thee with a mount, and I will raise forts against thee. All right. First and foremost, very plainly, 28 and 29 are part of the last context. But for chapter 29, verses 1 through 3, that's a second section. That's talking about a whole different thing. Now, after reading chapter 28 and 29, it's literal and metaphorical at the same time. Bread corn is bruised because he will not ever be threshing it. nor break it with the wheel of his cart, nor bruise it with his horsemen. This also cometh from the Lord of hosts, which is wonderful in counsel and excellent working. So now we can see from here that his point was not metaphorical at all. It was literal. That this is how you plant this plant, this is how you do this. But to point out in verse 29 that all this wisdom and everything and how it's supposed to work, that all is of God. That all is from God originally. God is the one who's the counselor. So in other words, it does connect to the previous part, but not in the way that was expected. It connects to it in pointing out after the whole mocking, don't mock it because your bands are going to be tightened if you do. It seems to be saying that we have all this wisdom from God, so use God's wisdom. Don't be mocking all this tribulation, everything that's going to happen. Your bands might get loose, and your bands might get tightened. Your handcuffs might get tight. Instead, use God's wisdom. Hasn't he already shown us enough to know his wisdom? Look at the way we plant these different plants. And then when we go into chapter 29, woe to Ariel, the city where David dwelt. Add ye year to year. Let them kill sacrifices. Yet will I distress Ariel, and there shall be heaviness and sorrow, and it shall be unto me as Ariel. And I will camp against thee round about, and will lay siege against thee with a mount, and I will raise forts against thee. So in other words, this is a word of warning to Ariel. Okay, yeah, you're the city where David dwelt, but you keep on going time after time after time and killing sacrifices. So we got a little bit of sarcasm in here. Go on, keep on doing year after year as you're doing, killing the sacrifices that you're killing. You think everything's good, but you don't know I'm about to distress you. You don't know there's going to be heaviness and sorrow. You don't know the problems that are about to show. I'm going to be coming up and surrounding you. And I'm going to take over and take you. And I will build up forts against you. So in other words, it ain't looking good for Ariel, that city. Now we've seen this for cities before, so there is possibility it's being literal. But there's also a possibility for metaphorical because it brought up that that's the place where David dwelt. Pointing out not fully metaphorical, but more of a comparison that yeah, David did live there. Don't act just sitting here and think just because he did means you're good. If you ain't doing right, you're gonna get just as much punishment as anybody else. All right. Now, Charles, do you have any comments or questions as we go to the final section?
No comments or questions. Just finishing up writing what you just brought up.
All right. Do you get how I got that?
The whole thing or just the Ariel part?
I'm asking if you understand the A to B to C. What part shows what?
The A to B to C, yeah. I'm glad you explained with 28, 29, because it, you know, how we got the literal point for that. And then 1 verses 1 to 3. I'm glad you explained that too. It's pretty self-explanatory. But it's not pretty self-explanatory, but it was easy. 1 to 3 was a lot easier to understand in this chapter than the last chapter. Let me say that.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I forgot to bring up is as it stands, we're looking at a likelihood that it is not part of chapter 28. That is
Yeah.
a separate context.
Got it.
All right. Then go ahead, Charles, when you're ready in the final section.
Next one I'll be reading is Isaiah chapter 29, verses 4 to 8. Give it a couple seconds. Verse 4. And thou shalt be brought down, and shalt speak out of the ground, and thy speech shall be low out of the dust, and the voice shall be as of one that hath a familiar spirit, and not and out of the ground, and thy speech shall whisper out of the dust. Moreover, the multitude of thy strangers shall be like small dust, and the multitude of the terrible ones shall be as chaff that passed away. Yea, it shall be at an instant suddenly. Thou shalt be visited of the Lord of hosts with thunder and with earthquake and with great noise, with storm and tempest, and the flame of devouring fire, and the multitude of all the nations that fight against Ariel, even all that fight against her and her munition, and that distress her, shall be as a dream of a night vision. It shall even be as when an hungry man dreameth, and behold, he eateth, but he awaketh, and his soul is empty. Or as when a thirsty man dreameth, and behold, he drinketh, but he awaketh, and behold, he is faint, and his soul hath appetite. So shall the multitude of all the nations be that fight against Mount Zion. My section's connected to yours.
Yep.
Yeah, my section's connected. I'm gonna do well. There is a broader way I could put all this together. I need to do this verse by verse so I don't forget nothing. Starting with verse 4. And thou shalt be well. Okay, let me get this straight with verse 4 was kind of funny. Verse 4 sounds like I'm gonna break you down, and I'm gonna break you down so low that you're gonna be on this ground, and your voice that your speech is coming out while you're on the ground, it's gonna sound like you're whispering. It's gonna sound like you've been beaten down so much that you can't even get that you can't. The only thing that comes out of your mouth is a whisper because you've been broken down so much and been beaten down to the ground. That's what I'm
It's
picturing in verse 4.
a little bit aggressive. Yep.
Okay. Moreover, the multitude of thy strangers shall be like small dust. Let me reread that. And moreover, the multitude of thy strangers shall be like small dust, and the multitude of the terrible ones shall be as chaff that passeth away. Yea, it shall be and it shall be at an instant suddenly. Ariel still. Let me get that cough out. Hold on.
Mhm.
Oh, that came out of nowhere. Ariel still. Ariel's multitude, the multitude of their strangers are going to be like dust, but in the multitude of the terrible ones. So the group of the terrible, the multitude of the terrible ones. When you say it's going to be as a chaff that passes away, I was going to ask what a chaff was, but it says at the end, yea, it shall be at an instant. So it just sounds like, let me go to chaff. It just sounds like you'll disappear in an instant with the snap of a finger.
The point,
Chaff
yes.
as pressed out, that is winnowed or rather threshed loose up. Back to that thresh again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the leftover. So like let's say you were I don't know what type of plant uses a threshing, but like hay, but when you have the hay, well, how do people collect the hay? Well, you
Like
roll it out, you
all,
pull it out.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when you're threshing it, what happens to everything that's been threshed that's not collected? Flies everywhere. It's like dust. There's nothing left. No stability. Does
Writing
that
this
make
down.
sense?
I'm visualizing it, but I'm writing it down.
Think about how hay flies off of a truck that has hay when you're driving behind it. But instead of it being on the truck, it's on the floor.
It flies everywhere. It's all over the place. And it is
Exactly.
a windy day. It was there and then it's gone again.
Exactly. So
That's
you're basically gone.
that's
Well,
and
not
it
you,
keeps
your terrible ones. Not you,
the
but your
terrible
terrible
ones.
ones.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
terrible ones. And let me go verse 6. Thou shalt be visited of the Lord of hosts with thunder and with earthquake and with great noise, with storm and tempest and the flame of devouring fire. So that's just giving us a visualization of just God's power. Showing when he shows up, he's showing up with all the things terrifying. Earthquakes are terrifying. Thunder is terrifying. Great noise from a storm. Flame of devouring fire. All of this is terrifying. When God shows up, he has a very terrifying presence when he shows up.
Exactly.
Verse 7. And the multitude of all the nations that fight against Ariel, even all that fight against her and her munition. Let me double check munition because I thought that was
No,
I said it wrong.
no, you said munition.
Yeah, it sounded like you did a Chewbacca. A net for capturing animals.
You said what?
I'm on the munitions definition. Strong.
Wait, what did
On the
it say?
strong from me. Yeah, let me read it for you. Strong's from H6679. A net for capturing animals or fishes. Also by
Okay,
interchange
that is
for
not
H.
how it sounded. I think you said a nut for catching.
No, net.
Okay. I was like, what? Okay.
A fastness or tower, bulwark, hold, munition. Okay, so it does
Trap.
include those as well.
Exactly.
Against her and her munition, which the munition could I could use bulwark, tower, hole in this situation
Yeah.
with this one. Yeah,
You could just say a
and that
trap.
trap and that distress her shall be as a dream of a night vision. Okay, let me read. In the multitude of the nations that fight against it. Area. So the people going against the nations going against area, the city of area. Those are the ones that are going to be as like this dream of a night vision, but it gives us the night vision in verse 8. What it's like giving us an example. Like, for example, in verse 8, this
So if
dream,
they're
this
the
night.
dream, who's having the dream?
Ariel's having the dream
There you
because
go.
they're the ones coming against them. So Ariel's having the dream, and I was about to bring it up wrong. Verse 8, and it shall be as when an hungry man dreameth, and behold, he eateth, but he awaketh, and his soul is empty. It's given like even all the way down the line. It's given examples of you're dreaming in hope, but you
Yeah,
wake up in despair.
exactly.
We've all been there before. Not this bad, but we've all been in a position where you're dreaming in hope. But when you wake up in despair, like, oh no, I gotta go through life
Yeah.
again. My dream was so much better. Same with the when you wake up and your soul is empty and you're dreaming about water drinking, but then when you wake up you're faint and there's no water, there's no appetite, you have no appetite or you lose appetite. You same with all of that. Ariel's having
Exactly.
that kind of dream of despair. Oh, that sucks. Let me get to the last part. So shall the multitude of all the nations be that fight against Mount Zion. That is insane.
So now we got the
And
comparison for Ariel in Mount Zion. It's like all the nations that fight against Mount Zion to be the same way for them.
That's all I got to say for this one.
Yeah, I thought this was hilarious, bro. Let me just say this about
Yeah,
verse
that
8.
yeah.
It shall be when a man is hungry, dreameth, and behold, he eateth, but he will awake, and his soul is empty. Like, I love the fact that it didn't say he was hungry. It said his soul was empty. That's so much worse. So that's the only comment I have for that. But anyways, do you have anything you want to add or say, Charles, before we pray it out?
Nope.
All right. Then I'll go ahead and pray us out. Everybody bow your heads. Father, thank you for this time of study that we've had. Thank you for the better mindset and focus. Personally, I am grateful that when we looked at the situation, there was some self reflection to be made, even if it wasn't specifically talking about that in context and we got the correct context. Just goes to show how we can have lessons out of almost anything. And so I pray as we go forward from the lessons and everything that we learned here, as well as the information, and we continue on with that for the rest of the week, let alone afterwards. In your Son's holy and precious name, Jesus Christ Yeshua. Amen.
Amen.
All right. On to the Bible listening. Now, tonight's Bible listening is Psalms chapter 17, all the way down to 43. Psalm 17 to Psalm 43. Let me know when you got it, Charles.
Got it.
All right. Then, for our listening for today or last night's listening, we had Job chapter 10 to Psalm 16. And we'll have Charles go ahead and point out what stuck out to you, and then I will go with what stuck out to me.
Job chapter 27, verses 1 to 6. I'm laughing just thinking about it. Throughout everything that Job has went through, throughout all the back and forth with other
Wait,
people.
what chapter did you say?
Oh, Job chapter 27.
27. Okay.
Tw-
I don't know why I didn't
27.
hear the 20 part. I was like, Job chapter 7.
27.
All right, go ahead.
Job is still like throughout throughout everything Job went through, including going back and forth with others, including having a back and forth with his wife in the previous chapter. Job is still standing firm and not disrespecting God, no matter his circumstance, no matter what he has going on, no matter how bad it had gotten. He's standing firm on he's not going to disrespect God. He's not coming against God, no matter what.
Exactly. All right. The one thing that I want to add on that is that I think that's part of the point of Job. The question has been asked before: if God is such a loving God, what's with the situation with Job? Either one, God is a tyrannical God who thinks it's fun just to mess with his people, or two, God cannot be all powerful because of everything that happened to Job. And the guy completely missed the point, and a lot of people do. The point of Job is not so Job can go through all that. The point of Job was not because God's some tyrannical God. We've seen God, he's not like that. The point of Job is to show the level of faithfulness that can take place even in the midst of all the harshest trials. That's the point of Job when you really consider it. Because Job ends up getting blessed in the end with everything back twofold. And so when you look at it, what was the point of it? It wasn't just to mess with him. It was a point prover and it was a standard bearer. So that when the time comes and it's our turn to go through things, we understand that, well, if Job can go through all that and I only have this little bit I got to go through, I could go through that little bit. All right. Now for mine. Chapter 13 of Job. In verse 1, it's not really 1, it's more of a 2. But in verse 1 and 2, this is in response to somebody saying that, look, Job, you're supposed to be the wise man, you're supposed to be this, but you're acting like you don't understand how the way things work. Like, if you were a righteous man, you wouldn't be going through this. If you were doing everything right, you wouldn't be having these problems. And Job responds with, lo, mine eye hath seen all this, mine ear hath heard and understood it. What ye know, the same do I know also. I am not inferior to you. So it was the fact of the understanding. You're bringing up things that we already know. God doesn't just punish somebody. He doesn't just have them go through things for no reason. And that's what Job is bringing up, because that's what the other guy was bringing up back in 12. Oh, no, not 12. 12 starts his reply. It was 11. And so that was the part that it brought up to me and why it stuck out to me. Don't sit here and act like you're better than me just because I'm going through something. I may be going through something, but you're still equal to me. You're not better. You don't know more. I know just as much as you do. Just because this is happening does not mean that you're in a better standing. And that's something to keep in mind towards like each other in the church. First of all, we shouldn't be judging against each other to begin with. But if even if we were, and it got so far as to try to judge comparatively against each other, if you really think about it, there's nobody better than another person. Not for the general people. Obviously, there are exceptions to this. I'm not going to sit here and say a serial killer is equal to somebody who lied on their homework. But as a majority, as a whole, we're not better than each other. So don't sit here and try to talk to somebody as if you're talking down to them just because you have some level of information. Be willing to hear their part, be willing to hear their side. Ironically, this does follow the same trend of the last week. Charles, did I ever, in that situation, who was the first to bring up saying, you act like you know everything, but you don't know anything?
Thomas, can you hear me?
Yeah. Now
Hmm.
let me ask, before he said that, or even after he said that, did I ever really say he doesn't know anything?
No, you didn't.
See, it's ironic in it because the one who was bringing facts and evidence didn't make any claims of knowing more than the other person. And the person whose idea was being debunked the entire way made an empty claim saying that the first person was acting like a know-it-all. So when we really consider about who's acting like a know-it-all, who would you really say was acting like they knew everything? See, that's the whole point of
Thomas.
the problem.
That's the whole point of, yeah. Go ahead.
That's the whole point of the problem. It's the same thing that was happening there. I didn't mean for that to correlate. That just did right now in my mind. But when I was listening, I wasn't thinking about it. It was just the comparison of don't talk down thinking you have more information when you don't know everything. So, bottom line of it is, I love the fact that we're getting some self-reflection, but we're also getting some perspective that's backing up the self. Like this really does back up that point of the difference. I never said you didn't know anything. I never called you out as a know-it-all. I brought evidence and you didn't like the evidence. The only one acting like they know everything is you, because you're unwilling to accept the evidence. Well, I know better. With what? Nothing was proven, and everything was debunked. So that's why that stuck out. That's an added note of what sticks out to me about it now. But at the time, it was just we're not better than
It's
each
funny
other.
how it's funny how it even you can add more to it now.
Yeah, yeah. Because when I first think about this verse, I'm like, was I ever acting like I knew more than him? No, I was bringing up information. I was bringing up facts. He's the one who brought up irrelevancy. Did I ever talk down to him, acting like he didn't know what he at all, anything at all?
No.
No. The closest I did do, and this is something I did do, was call him out for when he was bringing up stuff that was irrelevant. And he sure was bringing up irrelevant things. So it's just funny how the Bible backs up the situation just a couple days after and while we're doing the listening. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking like the more time goes on, the more everything I said is just being backed up and confirmed. But isn't that what it always is, Charles? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. And this will be the last thing I say before I give you the chance to add, if you have anything you want to add or say on that verse. Have we had one situation where we come back later on and everything points to I was in the wrong?
No. No, you talking about with Bible study situation? No.
Yeah,
No, we
Bible
haven't
study
had that.
situations.
No,
Yeah.
we ain't had that yet.
Not once yet. Like we've had it where I had done some wrong in the situation, but not where I was the one wrong in it. And obviously, there's a difference between making some mistakes in reaction versus being the one in the wrong in the situation. So that's all I wanted to ask. Now, as towards the verse, do you have anything you want to add or say before we close it out?
No, no. Nothing for me that.
Funny as heck. I love the way the Bible works. All right, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Have a good night.